Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, Minding Your Mind. My name is Kate Roiro, an enthusiast of matters brain and the human body. And as promised, we'll be joined by a guest, and she's here by the name of Joy Eve. She's a professional, accredited and certified therapist from B&M Safe Zone, and I will allow her to introduce herself.
All right, so hi everyone. So my name is Joy Eve. I'm a certified therapist with B&M Safe Zone Global, and I'm really glad to be here. And yeah, I'm looking forward to share a lot with Kate in this channel. Thank you.
And it's so amazing, and I am so glad that you could join us today. We've been going on this amazing journey talking about the human development, and where we are at right now, we wanted to dive in identity. And I'm sure as a doctor you have a lot to say about that. So first and foremost, kindly tell us in a layman's language, what is identity?
All right, so identity, as well known, or let me say on very simple terms, is really known as an inner image, or maybe a foundation of how a person perceives themselves or how they think about themselves. It can be conscious, it can be unconscious. It really depends on how a person is really self-aware, with themselves. So identity is really how you perceive yourself, and coming from both environment, people who you've interacted with, and just life in general, really build that inner picture of who you are. So I can say that is identity.
So you want to tell me, when I tell myself I'm beautiful, when I tell myself I am loving, I am kind, is that my identity, or is it just part of what makes up my identity?
All right, so identity doesn't necessarily come from what you're saying, but majorly comes from how you're feeling, So one of the things that happens is, if you're feeling, sometimes you can say, yes, I'm beautiful, but then when not everyone is there, you feel that's the time you actually realize, am I really beautiful? Somebody can tell you you are, but then when people are not around, are you really feeling beautiful? What are the things that you're actually telling yourself when you're not in the limelight, when everyone is not seeing you, your real self? Sometimes you tell people, can you be real with yourself? Do you really feel beautiful? So when you're real with yourself and you feel like you're really beautiful, then now that's now how my identity is. That's the inner image that I have. So it's not just about saying, oh, I'm beautiful and all that, but when you're real with yourself, do you really feel beautiful? And now when you don't feel beautiful, then you realize, my inner identity or my inner image is that I actually do not feel beautiful. And it comes also with every other thing, when it comes even to finances, when it comes to, work. Do you feel successful, or you feel like a failure,
Oh, I understand. That's why they say that you become rich in your mind before you even become rich on paper.
Yeah, so it's from the inside out. It's never from the outside in. So if you are, most of the times, a successful person doesn't necessarily to say they're successful. You can see in their demeanor. You will know a successful person, the way they talk, the way they carry themselves. Sometimes it's not just about talk. There are people who can be, they can say they're successful, but
actually
they are not successful because you don't see yourself successful from the inside. Could be your environment was from a very poor background, and because of all the things you've been bombarded with, you don't actually feel confident to see yourself. Again, the inner image. How do you see? Do you see yourself successful? And I think that's why it's very easy for people from a different background. If somebody is raised in a very posh place, it's very easy for them to see themselves wealthy.
Yeah.
Because in the inner image, they've been raised in wealth, so
they don't know anything else apart from.
So if you've come from another background, it may take some time. You may need to honestly allow yourself to change your environment, to see a different environment that helps you to actually see yourself successful. you know, I think.
And Doc, speaking of self-image and environment, I can hear you talking a lot about, you know, environment, background. What are the things that shape our identity or how we see ourselves?
It's majorly environment, and environment doesn't necessarily mean that it's just like a place, but majorly the people who you interact with, the people who you spend most of your time with are the people who actually build your identity. Because if people say this is how things are supposed to be working, you cannot dream beyond this, then of course you'll pick that up and you'll be like, you know what, there's nothing else I can dream of, you know, this is where I am. Then now you start, you know, those things you've picked start becoming your foundation. So that foundation is identity. Now you start speaking your foundation. You know, this is the place I can reach. This is where I can achieve. You know, this is who I can never get married. I can never do this. You know, some people are like this. So it comes from, you know, that exposure. Yeah.
And just to cut you short, at what age does identity begin to shape up before it begins to affect you?
Yeah, as soon as a child becomes conscious of their environment. So mostly it happens, a child is more conscious at around 6 to 10 months. So when they start being conscious of the people around them, their mom, they start realizing, oh, this is mommy, this is daddy, this is my sister, you know, this is my environment, this is home. So once they start realizing this is what I'm associated with, that's it. So that's why sometimes if a child has come from a very abusive environment, you know, there's a way, you know, you can see the way they perceive things. Or they can actually get something called culture shock when they see another environment where the parents are really peaceful. So you realize, you know, there's a change, you know, and that actually builds a lot of their identity, you know, from what they've been exposed to.
And because, Doc, in the previous episodes we majored mostly on personality development. Kindly help us to understand what the difference between identity and personality is.
Alright, so personality really is the person, an individual, is what people experience. So what happens is personality has, you can identify someone by personality. Have you had something like type A personality? You know, a person who's very a perfectionist. A personality is what now people see. So the things that people interact with. So identity is the foundation that builds personality. Yes. So when I see things a particular way, this is what people will perceive. So if I've had a particular way of seeing things need to be done like this. So when people see you, they'll say you're a type A personality because you want things. That's what they're experiencing. You know, that's why they're personality disorder, because they're experiencing something that's not normal. You know, you're not acting according to what's known to be normal. You know,
I think then there's a very thin line between identity and personality, and most people don't know when, you know, when they are talking about their personality and who they truly are. So what are some of the ways a person can, you know their identity?
Alright, so majorly it's through therapy. Most of the times it's through a soundboard. A therapy, when you're interacting with a therapist, they're normally like a soundboard. Alright, so what happens is that they help you identify. So through what you tell them, so they'll guide you through questions and ask you, okay, so what happens in this situation? So how do you see this? So through questioning and through just going through a process of, you know, tests and, you know, just questioning, it helps you. Okay, let me just say, you're brought to a place of awareness. And majorly through the external things that you have experienced, or people have experienced from you.
And speaking of awareness, what is self-awareness?
Yeah. So as it's just stated, self-awareness.
Uh-huh.
Self is yourself.
Uh-huh.
You, and awareness is knowing. So self-awareness is the ability to actually know all the things about yourself, your identity, and your personality. You could be having a personality and you don't know. You could be having a particular identity and you don't know.
Yeah.
So self-awareness is the ability to know. Yeah.
So for some people, is it possible for you to know, like, you know how you feel, you know how you react at particular times, you know where you're heading, but you don't actually know your identity? Is it possible for that to happen?
So, yeah, it's definitely possible, because not so many people also know there's something like identity.
Yeah.
So if you don't know identity exists, you can never know.
And most people don't even care.
Yeah,
They're just
so,
existing.
Yeah, you just exist and you don't know, and you live and like, it does not pay my bills. But you see, it can pay your bills.
Oh, really? How so?
So the reason why you're likely to actually be struggling in some things is because most of the times it's the things that you tell yourself. When you don't have a particular thing, how do you tell yourself it's over? Or what pushes you to be able, like, to know you will achieve a particular thing. So when you don't know, there's a high likelihood you're likely to stay a particular level, or even like struggle to even move forward.
So you, as a doctor, for example, can you look at our director here and tell if he's a person who knows his identity? Can you just look at a person and see some reflection of the things that let you know if a person really knows who they are? Can you see it in a person?
You can. You can sometimes. You can, because but mostly it happens from their communication, how they talk. So if a person pulls themselves down, most of the times, what happens is that that they have an identity crisis. They don't know who they are. Yeah. So, or even like where they are, or you see like somebody's really struggling to move forward, you realize that they have an identity crisis. Yeah.
So if you want to mean if I am maybe always negative, if I am always pessimistic and looking down on myself, does that mean I have an identity crisis?
You do have an identity crisis.
So what is identity crisis?
So identity crisis is, really struggling with the wrong inner image. As we started in the beginning, we said that identity is really the inner image of what you see.
Yeah.
So if you say, like, I'm not worth it, all these negativities, because that's what you're seeing on the inside. But that's not really what's there, So we have to go back to the foundation. Who told you you're not worth it? Did you listen to it on TV? Did you see it on drama? Did you see it? Where exactly? Who told you that's who you are? Yeah.
Wow.
And then from there, we can now tell you now who you are. It doesn't matter what has happened. There are ups and downs in life. But you are not unworthy. You're worthy.
Wow.
Yeah.
And identity crisis can happen to anyone at any age?
Yes, it can happen to even children, teens, and I think it's also what happens with teens a lot when they rebel. Because mostly they're dealing with who am I, and also that control from parents, and all these things. So a parent needs to be very, very conscious, especially when a child transitions. You need to be able to know the time when I need to be hands off and give your child a chance to transition, and also know when I should intervene, when I should let go, when I should just advise, when I should just be there to listen, and not. Sometimes teens don't want you to give them advice. They just want you to listen and to be there. Give them the space. Be gracious to them and everything. They don't want you to. You just allow them to transition. But if you're treating them as children, then you're causing them to rebel because they're not children, they're experiencing other things outside. They're having other teenagers who are telling them this and this. But at home, you're treating them as kids. But outside there, they have to be treated like
the world
adults.
is perceiving them as adults.
So that's why you may find them rebelling. It's not that they really want to rebel, but it's because you're causing that confusion.
There's a pull.
Yeah. You need to be, even as a parent, you need to be conscious. Hey, my child has grown. So the things that are happening are pretty different. So in fact, sit down sometimes and have conversations with your child. What's actually happening? So that now you know, how can I interact with my child? Can I help them? How can I be there for them? How can I deal with them? How can I start leaving them responsibilities and show them that I trust them now? They can be grown-ups. You'll see that the teen will transition very well. They'll be able to go into career without issues. Even if they will, they know they can come back to you and seek for more advice. And not come back to you and then you treat them as kids again. And
And let's say, Doc, I'm a girlfriend to someone, a wife to someone, or a mother, you know, and I have friends. And I can see, this guy is going through identity crisis. How do I handle that as the other person?
Alright, so meaning you are in a relationship, right?
Or a friendship, or your parent, any sort of relationship.
Okay, so parent, child, wife.
Wife to husband, whoever the other partner is suffering from identity crisis. And is it a condition, first of all, or it's just a phase?
Is it really okay, it can cause a condition. It can cause a condition, but it is not a phase. It's a foundation of who a person is. It's a foundation of who a person is. So it can cause a condition. It can cause bipolar. It can cause, because if
you mean bipolar is caused by it can root from identity crisis.
Most of the things majorly come from identity.
Narcissism.
Because most of the time narcissism comes from an individual who has a deep sense of insecurity. Where is that insecurity coming from?
Their foundation.
Precisely. So it can cause narcissism. It can cause what else?
Bipolar, as you said.
It can cause most of the mental issues normally come from identity. So if a therapist can actually hit on identity, and one of the things I do as a therapist whenever I have an individual who keeps on saying I'm bipolar, I'm like, hey, you see, I am his identity.
Wow.
I am. I'm like, no, you are experiencing bipolar, but you are not bipolar. You are experiencing depression, but you are not. And you're not depression. You're not a depressed person. You're not an anxious person.
But aren't those experiences making you who you are? So when you say I'm bipolar, am I not valid to say I'm bipolar?
You might, bipolar is a condition. So saying that you're bipolar, it means that now you want to embody that condition. It will, and then you're coming for therapy and you want something different. But then you say that's who you are. So meaning you any other life you want to live with it. You can't embody something you want to let go. You have to start embodying something positive that you want to start experiencing. So if you want to overcome a mental health issue, you need to start embodying something positive. Yes, you might be going through depression, and one of the things I tell my clients is that see these things as birds on your head. Okay, they might be on your head, but they don't have to put a nest. So putting a nest is majorly wanting it to be like this is it,
their home.
No, so just see it as a train passing by, see it as a passing by. You are not bipolar. You might be experienced, that's a bird, but it will pass away.
Wow.
You might be feeling depressed, but it's just but it will pass away.
So, Doc, if, like as you have said, identity crisis can reflect, in mental conditions. Apart from mental conditions, because I think that is when it has gone too far. how well can you tell if this person is undergoing identity crisis?
Yeah. So sometimes I can start maybe with kids. You know, you can realize that maybe a child is really struggling in, performing in school, and most of the times it's not that this person is really not intelligent, but what happens is that what they've been told and what they perceive they are, they may think that they're actually stupid. They think they'll never be able to actually achieve anything. And so most of the times the result, you've never seen movies of real-time movies, or even this doctor, what's his name? This guy who has done surgeries, big surgeries. It was until somebody told him something different that changed his life. Or a teacher came in and you are, just started telling them a different thing, and that formed their foundation, and that was it. It just started flying high. So really, most of the times, look at the stumbling blocks that you have. If a person has challenges, just life challenges, you realize kuna identity issue.
So sasa mimi nimejua this person is having identity crisis. I had asked this earlier, but we never answered. Okay. And maybe they can't afford therapy.
Yeah.
Ama, you know how Africans are. Kwani mimi ni mwenda wazimu niende therapy, How as their friend, ama as their partner, how can you help them before maybe wafike? You can take someone to therapy until we accept. So how can you walk with them that journey?
So information is power. That's why there's mental health awareness. So if you know, you can share that information. Sometimes giving somebody information gives them a sense of awareness. Like, yeah, actually have this issue. So it will help them start thinking about it. Let me tell you, if somebody realizes that this is the issue and it can be solved, they'll do everything. These days, you don't have sometimes go for therapy to actually get help. There's YouTube.
Yeah.
You can always get this information. Stuff to do with identity. Sometimes all this information, even now, this information is going to definitely empower somebody out there.
It's true.
So yeah, and sometimes there are farms which actually provide cheap mental health spaces. 500 shillings per session. Not all mental health spaces are expensive. There are places that are cheap, but then there's so many materials that can help you change your mindset.
And we have a doctor here. If you feel like you're suffering from a few things here and there that need a professional to handle them, there's a professional doctor here. And
just in life, you don't have to be like having like main issues, but if you feel like you want to achieve more than what you have, I can really advise you to just have somebody walk with you. Let me just say a therapist who can open up your mind, make you think differently, see things in a very different way, so that now you can be able to achieve those things.
And they will make you cry, that's for sure.
Definitely depends.
I remember our first time in session, I cried. I cried.
Oh my God. Yeah. Actually, did not. Okay, did you cry?
I cried, not during, but afterwards. I cried, and later it felt. I felt a bit light, and I felt better. I felt healed, So there is such a great impact with therapy, but people underestimate the power in it.
I know, because if you've carried things for so many years, and then you realize I can have something different. I mean, most of you cry because it becomes so overwhelming. It can be like. Sometimes crying could show that you're offloading. It could present different ways. Some people may be like, oh my gosh, I thought I had to cry all that. Some people will be, well, I'm crying. But one of the things I tell, never be ashamed to offload however you feel like it's best. If your body responds that way, cry. There's always time for everything. There's a reason for crying. So if that's the time for cry, cry.
Yeah.
There's always time. You can't be laughing all the time. You can't be angry all the time. So if it's time to cry, cry. If it's time to laugh, laugh.
Yeah.
And allow yourself to express those emotions and offload.
Yeah. So there are these people, speaking of crying, they say like, wow, ni wanaume, they don't cry. You know, they store emotions, they store baggages. Can that affect a person's identity?
Storing like baggages and not crying
when you need to
you don't because of the identity. Because honestly, to be frank, as a therapist, and as I said, I'm from a global organization, so I have dealt with people from different continents. People from outside Africa cry and they don't have issues with that. And it's like sometimes even as a therapist, you're like, you don't feel, if you're an African therapist, you don't feel like you need to cry. Oh, you don't need to cry, you're a man. I'm like, no, I don't feel like I have shyness to climb this mountain. I'm like, this mountain of crying and showing emotion, I'm okay with it, because in the foundation, in the identity, they've been told like crying doesn't make you less of a man. Yeah. So
it all goes down to, as you said earlier on, background. You know, identity.
The inner image. Where the man in Africa will see a man should be firm, should be that's
strong, fierce.
So meaning when you cry, you're like a woman. So they'll be like, no, I'm not a woman. But then somebody else in a different place will be like, no, cry. That doesn't change, you know, that doesn't change the fact that you're a strong man, you're a real man. Real men also cry. Yeah, when it's time to cry, it's time to cry. When it's time to be strong for your family, it's time to be strong. When it's time to be vulnerable and you need somebody else to support you, go ahead. We will support you. We will be there for you. You know?
Wow.
Yeah.
So as we are winding up, I'd like you to help me or us understand. You're saying about background, about, you know, environment. Where do I store this identity? Is it in the body? Is it in the mind? Is it in the memories? Where is identity stored?
Alright, so there's something called the soul. So the soul is normally like a space. Our therapists also are known as the soul doctors. So the soul is a place where the emotions are, where the mind is. You know, it's that. Let me just say, it's that space of the mind. You know, because it has different categories. There's the unconscious part, there's the subconscious part, there's the conscious part. So we can categorize that as this. So right now, like things that are ukomosho, like they're stored in the unconscious mind. The things that are maybe closer subconscious, or even things that are so traumatic because you can't handle the emotions anymore, you store them in the unconscious mind or the other part. So it's a whole comparison of that. So
well, is it the reason why, you know, when a lady asks you or a man like, what do you love about me, and they say it's because you're beautiful, it's because I love your smile, your eyes, but they don't want to hear that. They want to be told things that are associated with, you know, you're intelligent, you are, you know, you are kind, you like those things that are stored in, as you said, the soul part of a person. Is that the reason? Because they are targeting your identity, like who you are as a person, not the outwards.
A person likes to be told they're pretty, or they don't like being told they're pretty. They want to be told
you're intelligent. You know, you're smart. You know, I love how you organize things. You're hardworking. They don't want to be told, hey, your figure is like, when you're told that by a guy, unafikiria tu, this guy wants to sleep with me.
Alright, okay. So that one is so different, and it depends from lady to lady. It doesn't depend on, you know, at specific. There are women who've actually experienced trauma. So that trauma is what causes them to not receive compliments because it's natural to be told you're pretty. It's not a bad thing. But then because you associate it with something negative, you reject it. And I think when somebody comes for therapy, we also teach them how to receive compliments. It's okay to be pretty and to receive compliments. It's not. And then now we realize what exactly made you like this, and then you realize it had nothing to do with the guy. It had nothing to do with the compliments you gave them. It's because somebody else told them this and this, and so they've lived their life thinking like beauty doesn't, somebody who's beautiful is not intelligent. Somebody who's beautiful can only be a housewife. Can only be. You see, all these things are majorly identity, are majorly the things that build that inner image and make you who you are, and what you receive and what you don't receive.
So as we are winding up, Doc, please let us know the importance of identity, because what I'm getting is identity is everything in a person.
Definitely.
So what is the importance of knowing thyself?
Identity, knowing your identity is very, very, very important. And let me just talk to everyone out there. So somebody needs to sit down and think, how am I seeing myself? How are the things in my life that are not working coming from how I'm perceiving myself, what I'm seeing, what am I seeing about myself or specific situations in my life. Just evaluate career-wise. Just sit down. Maybe if we're in therapy, we'll like do a table or a book. Let's just divide aspects of your life. Let's do career. Let's do relationship. Let's do all these things. How do you see all these things? What are the things you want to achieve? But then yes, you want to achieve them, but how do you see yourself currently? And then, understand where you see yourself. So identity is very important for life goals, for interactions with people. It's very, very important. So I think it's one of the things that everyone should actually sit down and evaluate and see, who do you see yourself, or who do you want to see yourself, or where are you? Yes. I hope I've answered.
Wow, that's so amazing, Doc. I mean, I'm so blown. I never thought, identity is the core of human being. And it's so enlightening, and I hope you have learned a thing or two, if not everything. And thank you so much, Doc, for joining us. I'm sure we'll be here next time sharing even more. So if you have any question, if you have if you have a comment and maybe an issue you'd like addressed, or if you'd want also help from Daktari here, leave a comment below, or we shall also share our email. You can email us in boxes with your questions, with your issues, and we shall deal with it properly. So thank you so much for joining in. Please, Daktari, tell us where we can find you on your social media pages, your office.
All right. So as I said, I work with VNM Safe Zone Global, so you can always go to that page, or Good News Mental Space, or my page, Eve Chesed. So it's not so active, but if you text, I'll see. So so you can always reach out to me, Joy Eve, and I'll definitely help you figure things out. It's never too late to know thyself.
It's true, and we shall follow you. And people, therapy is important. Don't underestimate the power of therapy. It made me cry a lot. It made me upload. And please, if you have not subscribed to my channel, please do so, and also watch my previous content so you can be brought up to speed on where we've come from and where we are to where we are going. Also share this content. Someone needs to hear this. You can share it on your WhatsApp groups and WhatsApp contacts, and you can also find me on my social media accounts at Kate Riro on Instagram, Facebook. Also YouTube is Kate Royo. Thank you so much for joining in. Until next time, see you.